everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Beebee, and if this is your first time here today, welcome, and if you're back for another video, then welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking directly to my travel nurses, and we are going to be discussing the top 10 questions that you should always ask before you accept a travel assignment. This will save you a lot of surprises, a lot of heartbreak, and may also possibly keep you from accepting a travel assignment that you should not have accepted. So if you want to hear what these questions are, my top 10 holy grail questions that I always ask not only the manager but also my travel nurse recruiter before I start any travel assignment, then keep on watching. The number one question that I would always recommend that you ask the manager of the unit or whoever makes the scheduling before you start your assignment is, how do you do the scheduling? Scheduling is one of those things that really does play a huge part in your experience as a travel nurse, especially for somebody who's working night shift. We all have our preferences. Some night shifters prefer to do block scheduling, which is to do their 3 days in a row, while others may feel like 3 days in a row is just too much. Also, with everything that's going on, a lot of travel assignments are 4 and 5 days in a row. That is even more important for you to ask the unit manager how exactly they're going to schedule you. Are you going to be working 5 days in a row, or is it going to be spread out sporadically, which a lot of people do not like? The other thing that you're going to want to ask your manager is, how do you input your scheduling? One of the things that surprises a lot of travel nurses, and I've met a few that are on their first assignment that have been extremely surprised by this, is the fact that a lot of times you may not have any input in your schedule at all. You have to remember, as a travel nurse, you are here to assist the unit in their needs. And a lot of managers will tell you straight up, I am just gonna put you in on the days that I need you. So you are not able to put in your schedule. You are literally surprised and have to accept what the scheduling says. I have been on a few assignments like that where I just find out my schedule when it is uploaded into the system every month or whenever the schedule is posted. That is just something that you may want to keep in mind if you are going to be traveling, due to the fact that if you're coming from a staff position, you know that most of the time you're able to put in your own schedule, or you can make requests ahead of time. Whereas travel nursing, that may not always be the case. The next thing that you're going to want to ask about is the float policy. This is another thing that may surprise people who are new to traveling, and that is the float policy. Some units may require that their travelers are always the first to float, while others may have a floating rotation book where you and the staff take turns with rotating. The other question that you're going to want to ask is, what units am I going to be floated to if I am to be floated? A lot of people who are ICU nurses do not feel comfortable floating to med-surg units. If you are somebody who has been used to taking care of 1, 2, sometimes 3 patients, being floated to a med-surg unit where you're now responsible for 6 and 7 patients may be a shock to you, and may even leave you feeling like you are not safe to take care of these people, and vice versa. If you are somebody that is used to taking care of, for the most part, stable med-surg and tele patients, you may not feel comfortable getting floated to an ICU unit, even if they tell you that these are stable ICU patients, depending on how you feel and what your history has been and experience with taking care of different types of patients. This is just something that I would definitely recommend that you ask about. Orientation. The length of your orientation is something that you are going to want to inquire about from the jump. Now, a lot of first-time travelers may be surprised. I'm gonna keep going back to first-time travelers because I'm thinking back on my experience as a first-time traveler, and there was a lot of things that surprised me when I first became a travel nurse. So anyway, let's bring it back. So you may be surprised at the length of orientation that you are going to have when you begin on your unit. I have worked at various different facilities where the time of orientation can vary from 1 shift to 3 shifts. So you basically do 3 shifts of orientation, so basically a week, or just 1. It all depends on the facility and what they feel like is efficient for you. It's important to ask about your length of orientation because if you have one shift of orientation, that may not be enough for you to feel comfortable. So that may be something that you want to tell your manager in the beginning. Let them know, hey, this is my first assignment, my second travel assignment. I'm not 100% familiar with this charting system. I may need more than one. Is that a possibility? The other thing that you may want to inquire about as well is if your orientation is going to be on a day shift, if you are going to be working night shift. For some reason, I don't know why, but a lot of facilities like to do your orientation on days, even if you are going to be working on nights. And sometimes that's kind of a hard transition, especially if you're not somebody who's used to working on days and you're training on days, because they want you to see all the things that happen on days. And then now you're switching to nights where the requirements might be completely different, such as you may have to do morning labs. You may have to draw your own labs. You may have to replace electrolytes in the morning, and those are things obviously that you are not going to cover if you are training on a day shift position. So definitely inquire about your orientation, about the length of it, and what the possibility is, well, what you can do if you do not feel comfortable. Can you extend your orientation? How many travelers are on the unit? So this is a question that I like to ask, and that is mostly because it kind of gives you a feel of the unit. If you are on a unit that has a lot of travelers, you're gonna have a better experience. I have worked on units that have been predominantly travelers, and it's a whole vibe. It's definitely a whole vibe. And it also shows you that that unit is traveler friendly, and it also lets you know that people have been coming into this unit and they have enjoyed it, they've stayed, and just overall a good unit. If you are on a unit that has a lot of travelers, that also shows you that the unit as a whole is used to having travelers, that they've accepted the travelers, they kind of have a flow with them. So just kind of keep that in mind, because sometimes if they're not used to travelers, things can kind of go a little left. So just keep that in mind. Always inquire about the overtime policy on your unit. This is something that you're gonna wanna bring up to the unit manager or the unit director. Some hospitals do not allow travelers to pick up overtime. The main reason for that is usually based on the budget. As a traveler, you cost the hospital a lot of money. So they try not to have you pick up overtime because that costs them even more money. A lot of travelers can be surprised by this, because with the way that everything is and rates being at their highest, you want to go on a travel assignment where you can make the most money during that short period of time. And it can be disheartening for you to get to a facility and you're not allowed to pick up any type of overtime. Now, this has happened to me in the past. I was on a travel assignment far, far away, and I was paying a ton of money to live there. I didn't know anyone, and I was on a 4-day assignment. And when you're in a new city and you don't really know anybody, picking up an extra shift can sometimes just be something that you do because you ain't got nothing else going on. And I was told by the unit director that the hospital basically put in a policy, the CEO, that travelers cannot get overtime. We are already expensive enough, so we are not allowed any type of overtime. And that was disheartening for me, because I could have picked another travel assignment where I would have made more money because I would have been allowed to pick up shifts. So that's a question that you're gonna wanna ask your manager before you start your assignment. The next question is for your travel nurse recruiter. Overtime rate. Believe it or not, a lot of agencies will have incentives for you to pick up a shift. They will either give you a bonus, hey, for every shift you pick up, you get an extra $100 on your check. Or sometimes they will introduce a special rate for you when you pick up a shift of overtime. Reason being, if you're not on a travel crisis assignment, then typically your taxable rate is low. It's probably about $40, $50. And if you're definitely not on a travel crisis assignment, then you are going to be in the $20 mark. Now, a lot of travelers don't really like to pick up overtime because for $20 taxable and then your OT rate is $30, it doesn't really make sense for you to pick up overtime. So some agencies, what they do is, somehow, I'm not really sure the whole technicalities of it, but your overtime rate is not gonna be time and a half, but whatever that number is. I was on a travel assignment where my taxable rate was $25 an hour, but whenever I picked up overtime, I was making $100 an hour. So that is just something that you may want to ask your recruiter about. The charting system and the scrub colors. So this is something that you're going to want to ask your unit manager. And that is really important because you don't want to get to a facility and be surprised by the charting system. If you are used to Epic or if you are used to Cerner and you show up and it's something different, this will make your life so much harder. I always like to double check this because sometimes your recruiter does not have the most updated information. Sometimes they might not have the right information at all. And I would hate for you to show up to your facility and just be thrown for a loop finding out that your charting system is different than what you found out. I always also inquire about the scrub color. Verify that the scrub color that you are going to be packing for your travel assignment is what it actually is. Once again, this is due to the fact that sometimes what you're being told by your recruiter may differ than what is at the facility. Perfect example, I worked at a facility where everybody wore navy blue scrubs, but the cardiac floor wore red scrubs. I was told by my recruiter that the colors of the facility was gonna be navy, so I had began to pack all my navy scrubs, but during the interview, the manager clarified to let me know that they are the only unit within the entire hospital that gets to wear red scrubs. So I would have been SOL if I would have packed all my navy blue scrubs. So once again, just something that you may want to keep in mind. Ask about those scrub colors. Nurse versus patient ratio. Always ask the nursing manager about this. Don't go by what your recruiter says because your recruiter does not work at the facility. If you are somebody that is used to working at a certain ratio, whereas 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 in ICU, or on a step down unit where you have 3-4 patients, occasionally 5, this is something that you may want to check and verify with your manager. The ratio that you're typically used to may not be what it is at this region, at this hospital, and that is something that you may want to ask about so that you are comfortable when you get to the facility. I would hate for you to typically be working on a med-surg unit or a tele unit that has 4 and 5 patients, and then you show up in Florida and find out that you can get up to 7 patients on a med-surg unit, because that is reality. I have lived it, and there has been travel nurses that have shown up and have left that same day. Just something for you to keep in mind. Verify that the unit that you signed up for is the unit that you are going to be working on. You do not, I cannot tell you how many times I've shown up to orientation on a travel assignment and then we're all sitting there and there's always that 1 or 2 people that raise their hand and they're like, I thought I was working on a step down unit, and they're like, no, you're on a tele unit. Or I thought I was working on a transitional unit, and they're like, no, you're gonna be working on a hold unit. Verify that the unit that you signed up for, that you're contracted for, is the unit that you are going to be on. I had signed up to work on a step down unit, and I found out during my interview process that I was actually going to be working on a transitional unit, which is a little bit different than a step down unit. It's basically we're holding step down patients that need beds in any which where in the hospital. So once again, something for you to verify. What unit am I going to be working on? If I signed up for ICU, am I going to be really working in an ICU unit, or is this going to be a sort of kind of ICU unit? I'm just letting you know it's happened, and I don't want you to be a victim. Are my hours guaranteed? This is something that you're gonna wanna specifically ask your recruiter. Now, if this is a new concept for you, I will explain. Having guaranteed hours basically means that regardless of the need of the hospital, they can call and cancel you. They may not use you for 1 shift that week, 2 shifts that week, or they may not even call you that week at all because they don't have any needs for you. You are going to get paid regardless. Now, this is something nice for you to have in your contract, because if the hospital slows down and they start calling you off and you're in a whole nother city that you're paying housing for, that you're living in, you're going to be losing money. So by having guaranteed contracts, it just puts you at ease to know that regardless of whether you work or you do not work, you will have a certain amount of money deposited in your paycheck every week. Always ask about that. It's not always something that they offer, but it is nice for you to ask and see if you can receive. Last but not least, now this is really, really important, and it is a lesson that I learned one time, and it will be the first and the last time that I learn it. And that is, what are my options if this hospital is not good for me? Do not ask the unit manager that. They do not know. This is something that you ask your recruiter. So what if you show up and you are supposed to work on the ICU unit, and within the first week you have been floated to tele and med surge every single shift, and this is just not for you? This is not what you signed up for, and you want to be out. Now, I definitely recommend that the first thing that you do is start emailing your recruiter. Don't call your recruiter, email your recruiter. You need to have a record of these things that are happening, and not all the time is verbal communication the best thing. I'm not saying that your recruiter is that kind of person, but I personally, when problems arise, I always like to document my problems on paper so that it can be shown that I verbalized my concerns. I let you know that I wasn't feeling safe. I let you know that I didn't feel like I was treated right on this unit, and that is documented. It is important for you to ask about this policy from your company, because sometimes they may penalize you for ending a contract early. They've invested by paying for your drug screen, your orientation, and everything else, and by them having to get another nurse to fill in your spot, it's going to cost them money. So it is important for you to inquire about, what do I do if this is not a good fit for me? Do I have to put in a 2-week notice? Do I have to put in a 1-month notice? Do not ever feel like you have to continue your contract. There is always a way to end your contract if you're not feeling comfortable and you're not feeling safe. Some companies may tell you that you absolutely cannot, or make it very difficult for you, but at the end of the day, just like a hospital has the right to cancel your contract, you as an employee, as a traveler, have a right to cancel your contract on your end if it is not a right fit for you. So at the end of the day, always inquire about that, just to kind of prepare yourself for the worst case scenario. And yeah, that is pretty much it. That is the end of my video. These are the top 10 questions that I would always recommend that you ask before you start any type of travel assignment. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any other questions that you feel like are like holy grail, gotta ask before I even start, then please put them down below. There's a lot of newbie travelers out there who are watching my videos and would probably learn a lot from you by leaving that question down below. So that is pretty much it. You know, at the end of my videos, I always leave a little like catchphrase that I want you guys to comment down below. So today, the catchphrase is going to be teal blue, because I'm wearing a teal blue shirt today, and I really like it. It is from, I had to fix myself. So this one is from Figs, I believe, and I absolutely love it. It is teal blue. Did I say the color was teal blue? Okay, the phrase is teal blue. Let's stick to that. It's teal blue. So if you finish the whole video, please comment down below teal blue, and I will see you at my next video, and I will try not to create such a huge gap between my videos. I will talk to you guys soon, and happy nursing. Bye.